Hello and welcome to Lesson 7 of the Python Crash Course. Once again, my name is Sam and these courses were brought to you by Banana Chip Tech. Today we are going to be talking about imports in Python. Alright, there are two types of things that we can import in Python. They're going to be modules and packages. Okay, so let's first start off by talking about modules. And so modules are basically just files that contain Python definitions. There's one module that you're always going to have in your code that's going to be called the main module. And the main module is basically the Python script that you're going to be running. So whenever you run some Python code, that Python file you're running is the main module. Now you can have other Python files with other definitions, and I'm calling them auxiliary modules. And you can refer to them by their file name without the .py. Yeah, so we'll work through an example a little later on in our video about how these modules work. But for now, just remember that there's the main module, and then there could be other modules that are just going to be other files, other Python files containing some Python code in them. So there's some benefits of using modules that I wanted to discuss with you. The first benefit is code reduction. The idea here is you put stuff in a module, you can use that module in multiple different programs. You don't have to keep recoding the same thing. So the modules have that benefit of being able to reduce the amount of code that you have there. Additionally, Python provides some built-in modules that come already pre-installed with your Python installation. So all you have to do is just access those modules using the import statement that we'll show you in a little later on in this video. And you can have access to all of these modules that Python has already provided for you. So instead of having to reinvent the wheel, so to say, you can just use code that has already been written. So that's the first benefit. Now the second benefit is more of a design pattern idea where you can modularize your code. And the idea here is that you want to put your code into different files in different areas so that you can keep related concepts, related code separate from your main code, right? So by putting them in different files and having that different kind of structure, if your program crashes, you know that you can, either have to debug that one particular module or that one particular file, or you know that it's working fine, right? Because your code is separated, it's much easier to find where the errors are occurring. So that's the idea of modularization, where you take code that has a bit of a related function and you put it in its own little module. And you know that module, once you debug it and you test it, you know that module works. You don't have to ever look at it again, basically, when you run into bugs. Now, the next type of thing that we can import is called a package. And packages are just multiple modules grouped together in a package. So if you think of a module as a file, the packages are like the folder that holds all the files. So there are two types of packages according to the Python documentation. There are regular packages and there are namespace packages. For the remaining section of this tutorial, we're going to just be talking about regular packages. Again, we're not going to worry too much about namespace packages. It gets a little confusing. We're just going to focus on regular packages for now. And so the last thing that we need to talk about is pip, which is the package installer for Python. So we talked about how packages, they're just conglomerations of modules, and we have those packages out there. And then we talked with modules about how the benefits are that we can reduce the amount of code we have to do and modularize. Packages provide those same benefits as well in the fact that we can reduce the amount of code that we need. But the additional benefit of packages is that there are programmers out there in the world who have spent some time creating a package that solves a particular task. So for instance, there's a package that I like to reference called the request package, and that sends an HTTP request so you can access a website in Python. Now that package is not included in the default Python installation. You can't access that code basically in your regular Python package. So what you can do is use this this package installer called pip, which allows you to install packages from a central repository called the Python Package Index, or PyPy. And we'll work through an example using pip, but again, in this intro, I just want to make sure that you're aware that we have these packages, and then people put packages online that you can use for free in your own program. So instead of having to reinvent the wheel and recode things over and over again, you can simply just go to pip, install the package that you want, and bring it back down to your project. All right, so I've created a new Python project here. So we're going to go ahead and work through some examples of using modules and packages today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create some modules. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to the main function and just say print hello world, just so that we have this function here for so there we go. So now if we go ahead and run it, we'll get our hello world. And so what I want to bring your attention to is notice that this if statement here, we talked about this in one of our previous videos about how we're using our conditionals here and how this is saying that this is the main module that we're running. And so I just wanted to reiterate that in more detail here, is that we're saying that this name variable is going to hold the name of the module that we're currently in. And because this is the main file that we are running, we're going to go ahead and say that this is the __ main module. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. So we're going to go to new Python file. I'm going to call it cool.py. Now in this, I want to go ahead and let's do a new function. So we'll say def cool function, and we'll just do this. We're going to go ahead and print the name of this module, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do name. And now what we're going to do is we're going to import this module from the cool file into this main file. So we're going to go ahead and do import cool. Whoops, I'm so cool. So now in this main function, we're going to go ahead and call the cool.cool function. Okay, so let's go over that one more time. So this is our main module, right? Because this is the main program that we're going to be running, and we're going to call this main function. In the main function, we're going to print hello world, and then we're going to go to the cool module that I've imported here in line number 5, and then go to the cool function. Notice this module.function syntax. So when we import it like this, that's the syntax we got to use. We got to do module name dot, and then this particular definition that we're trying to access. So in this case, we're trying to access the cool function. So let's run this. And now notice that we got cool here for if we go back to our cool py, we're printing out the name. And so notice that what's happening here is that this file is the name of the module just without the .py. And so that's how you know what the module is. Now, I know that this Python file is called main.py, but I want to show you that our main module doesn't necessarily have to be main.py. So if we go in cool.py and we paste the same code here, let's do that, and we'll make a main, we'll change this to the cool function. All right. Now, if I run this code as itself, we'll see that actually this will be the main file. So to change that, we have to click on Edit Configuration here, and this will give us our run configurations. So we've actually not talked about this in any previous videos, so I'm going to go through this. So the first thing here is the script path, and this tells you which file it is that we're going to run as our main Python file that we're going to be running. So right now, as you can see, it's set to main.py. I'm going to go ahead and change this to cool.py. So we hit OK. Now notice that it's updated to cool. We hit run. Now notice that it says __ main. And so even though that this module, that this file name is not the main file, it's not called main.py, because we're running this file directly, the name of the module stored in the __ name variable is going to be __ main. And if we imported main into, I'm going to take this import out. Let's say we imported main into this file, and we did main.main, you're going to notice that we're going to actually get we're going to get main. And so notice that the __ main is for the main module, but the other modules are just going to be the file name. So that you can keep that straight. So now that we've kind of talked through some examples of how to import a function from a file, we can do the same thing with any other definition that we have. We can do a class. We haven't talked about classes, but in our next video we will. We can do a variable. Anything that we could normally define and use later on, we could import. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and work with some built-in functions. I'm going to change this back to the main.py file. I'm going to hit OK. And so in main.py, we're not going to deal with the cool module anymore. Now let's import the random module. So import random. And then we're going to do print random.randint. Whoops. Let's say 1 and 10. And so what do you think that this code is going to be doing? I want you to pause the video, think about it, and have an answer written down before you resume the video. Alright, so welcome back. I hope that you have written down what you think it is, what the answer is. But the answer to the question that I proposed, what is this code going to do, is that this random is going to get a random integer between 1 and 10. And it's going to print it out to the screen. So let's run it. So we get 9. If I run it again, we should get something else. We get 8. We get 2. So notice that we're getting random numbers here. And then notice that when we did this import statement, we imported random, but random is not one of the file names here. That's because random is one of the built-in modules that come pre-installed with Python. And so as such, we can use it without having to have a random.py file. It's already built in, the definitions are already there. If you Google random Python module, you'll see all the documentation, all the functions, and all the variables that are associated with this random module. And so that shows you how the modules work out. So now the next thing that we're going to need to talk about is, now that we've talked about modules, let's start talking about packages again. So I mentioned earlier that packages are simply just collections of modules. So let's go ahead and create a package. Let's create our own package. That's pretty cool, pretty exciting. So we're going to see Python provides this Python package, or let's call it the food package. Now in the food package, notice there's this init.py file. So this init.py file is required whenever you're creating a regular package. So apparently it's not required anymore for creating namespace packages, but again, we're not going to worry about namespace packages. For creating any regular package, which is just a folder that has some modules in it, you're going to have this init.py file. And if you remember from or what you'll see in our next tutorial with classes, you'll notice that we have that init.py, we have an init function in our class as well. So you can kind of see all these things working together here. So let's go ahead and create some modules in this package. Let's call it potato.py. Let's go tomato.py. All right, so now in tomato, let's just define tomato. Let's just say print, I am a tomato. I cannot spell. All right, now let's do the same thing in potato, except we'll say it's a potato. Potato. All right, so now let's go back to our main.py file, and we're going to go ahead and import. We want to go ahead and import the those food files. So to import a package, we're going to do import food.tomato. And so now let's go ahead and just try running the food.tomato.tomato. Let's see what happens if we do this. So notice that we get I am a tomato. So the only difference really between a package and a module is that the package is just saying go to this package and then go to this module, or the module is just saying go to this module. So that's the only difference. Now this is kind of annoying, right? We have to type in food.tomato.tomato. What if we have like a package within another package? We have to keep putting that package name before our thing, and so these function calls are going to get really long. So there's a way that we can do this in Python to reduce the amount of typing, or I guess the amount of words that we have when we do a function. And so that's going to be the from keyword. So the from keyword says from the food package, the tomato module, we're going to go ahead and import tomato. So now instead of having to do food.tomato, we can just do tomato. And if I go ahead and run this again, notice that we still get I am a tomato. Now a few more interesting syntax things that we can do is we can do import all. And what this is saying is that, let's say we had tomato2 function, tomato2, instead of having to say, hey, let's import tomato and then tomato2, we can just say import all, and we can import tomato and tomato2. And if we go ahead and run this again, notice we get both of them. So that's really useful when you have packages or modules that have a lot of definitions, and it's just too much. And so the next thing that we can do is we can use this thing called the as keyword. So we can do from food.potato import potato as pt. And what this is saying is that instead of having to call this as potato, we can call it pt. So we can say just do pt, and we get I am a potato. And so notice that we're calling the same potato function, we're just giving it a different name. So now that we can create packages in our own code, let's see if we can get packages from elsewhere, from other people. And to do that, we can go to this Python package tab, and this is where we're going to use pip. And you can see that pip is already installed here. And so PyCharm is nice in that it kind of it'll install it for you. But if you are using PyCharm, you can also use the terminal to do this same thing. But we'll use the Python package stuff for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and import Numpy, which is a pretty popular package. I already have it pulled up here. And what it does is it gives us gives us an array object. But notice that if I try to import Numpy here without having installed it, our computer is going to be like, hey, there is no module named Numpy. What are you doing? Stop doing that. I don't know what you're talking about. So we can go to our Python packages manager down here in PyCharm. We can search for Numpy and then go ahead and click install. And once we install it, now that it's installed, if we run it again, notice that we have no errors. So we can then use Numpy however we want. All right, so the last thing that I need to mention is this Vem folder. And what this Vem folder does is it comes pre-installed with your PyCharm. Whenever you create a new project, PyCharm will automatically create it. But what this Vem folder does is it holds all the packages that you've downloaded in pip so that your entire computer doesn't get messed up, basically. So what happens when you download these packages, you have to store them in a folder somewhere, right? And so without Vem, you'll be storing it in your whole computer's folder, right? But what can happen is that there are all sorts of issues that can go wrong, and it gets a little scary. And so instead, you can create this virtual environment or this Vem folder to hold all the packages that are specific for this project. And what that does is that whenever we install a Python package now, it's not going to install it to your computer. It's only going to install it to the virtual environment here that we created for our project. All right, that brings us to the end of this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.